are now live on YouTube.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'll start. Okay, good morning. Thankful Thursday. Good morning, Sharon and Dove and Lynn and Cher and everyone else who's out there. We are on lesson 200. There is no peace except the peace of God. And Ken Wapnick's Journey Through the Workbook says, this is the last full lesson in part one, a wonderful culmination of our previous discussions. In centering on the theme of seeking and finding, and even in some of its phrasing, this lesson reflects seek not outside yourself, which is chapter 29, section 7. Jesus helps us recognize that we are never really successful in seeking for happiness and freedom from pain in the world. Whatever pleasure and peace we seem to attain is short-lived, for true happiness comes only from remembering who we are as children of love. Yet, if the body is a limitation on love, and the world was made as an attack on love, it is impossible to find the love we seek here. I love that line. I'm going to read that again. Yet, if the body is a limitation on love, and the world was made as an attack on love, it is impossible to find the love we seek here. So last night I was at an outdoor dance festival. There's one almost every night during the summer up here in northern Michigan. And often I've gone to these things and I'm checking out the men, right? So I want a new relationship. And I never see any that are single that seem to be anyone that I would want to be with. But last night it was different. And often during the morning, I start out and say, I wonder what amazing, wonderful shifts in perception will happen today. Well, I had an interesting one last night, and it was, ew, I don't want to look for a body. Oh my gosh, bodies just, they just don't do it. I am spirit. I'm not this body. And to think that I could get with another body and be happy and that that's going to make me feel whole, that's just ridiculous. And of course, I've known that for 20 years, right? Intellectually, but it's really become very centered in my being since that last man broke up with me. So thank you to him. But to get into the sense of really knowing every single day, every single moment, my happiness is with my connection with truth, connection with love, with being the self, capital S. And that is just becoming so grounded. So even like last night, thoughts of, even if I saw a good looking man that I thought that I was attracted to, it's like, yeah, it just doesn't work. And if it's meant to be in the script or whatever for me to be with someone, then that will happen. But it's like the seeking, it just can't even happen anymore without being aware of, nah, that's not going to make me happy. So that's an amazingly wonderful shift in perception. And I'm so grateful for that. So, yet, if the body is a limitation on love and the world was made as an attack on love, it is impossible to find the love we seek here. And I know that in my being. Since we have been seeking in the wrong place and, as a result, never finding what we want, we live in a constant state of hopeless despair. And I used to say despair was my middle name. I did. I lived in a constant state of hopeless despair. And that wants to creep back in, just like the seeking for a man wants to creep back in. But they can't creep back in without my awareness now. And then I get to choose again. And we know that choice is an illusion. So it may look like I'm making a choice, but really there is only truth. There's only love. So staying aligned with that, it's not even really a choice. You're just in it. You're in truth. Real hope, that offered by A Course in Miracles, lies in going back to the problem and solution in our minds. If we seek for the solution where it is, we will certainly find it. This message, then, is the burden of the lesson. Paragraph 1, lines 1 to 2. Seek you no further. you will not find peace except the peace of God. And Ken says, peace cannot be found here, for the body and world were specifically made to hide the source of peace in the mind. And that's another thing I've been noticing since I've gotten back to meditation. I did meditation in my early spiritual practice back in the 80s, and then I dropped it because I felt like I couldn't do it. It just, my mind kept wandering and I never felt still. Even though when I did it, I would set a timer for 20 minutes. I felt more peaceful overall and calmer, but I felt like, nah, I'm not getting anywhere. So I resorted to reading and contemplating, and that always worked really well for me. But what I didn't realize was that when I would read and contemplate, often the contemplation was still on ego things. So the mind was busy contemplating the ego. And that has become apparent to me since I started meditation again about 3 months ago. And now I don't allow my mind to, the senseless wandering. You are too, what is that line in the course? Dove, you would know it. You are too tolerant of mind wandering. Yeah, you are much too tolerant of mind wandering. And that's what I was doing. I was doing a lot of contemplation on truth and love. And so I was getting more and more peaceful, but I didn't even realize the extent of the mind wandering that was going on until I started this meditation 3 months ago. So now it comes up and I can quickly shift back into the right mind. Um, but I had given up the meditation because I didn't feel like I could do it. And now I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to have been brought back to it. And not super long periods, maybe anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how much time I seem to have. But I'm grateful for it. So, yes, it has come super apparent. Not even the thoughts that I used to have, the mind wandering thoughts of being comforted in my old fantasies, they just don't work anymore. It's just like, oh, that's not going to make you happy. So I'm going to turn this over to you now, Sharon.
Thanks, Lorri. I was trying to test my computer because when I was talking earlier, I don't think you guys heard me. So I'm on my phone. I'm just.
Oh, no, we didn't hear you.
Yeah, because the computer goes out every so often. It's not a problem. So there is only peace of God. That's all that's really here. And what I came to realize, we had a group Tuesday night, and this lovely man, I think his name is Hakeem. Is that his name, Doug?
Yes.
Okay. When he was sharing, I could see that I was still comparing. The mind was still comparing him to another teacher. And this is where I'm being directed to stop all comparing, because there's only one voice. The voices sound like they're different, and they are in the relative. It's different voices that we hear from the oneness, but it's really just oneness speaking. Because really there's no person here. There's just the peace of God. So I ended up waking up in the middle of the night. I guess it was, Wednesday morning, early around 4. And the ego was slamming me. And I found it really funny, but I also got a little bit drawn into it on how I seem to be insidiously listening still to the wrong mind. Because anything that has to do with any one person. I mean, yeah, we talk about teachers and we talk about who's good and all of that. But really, there's just this oneness. And so these voices that are coming through are all the same voice. And when you hear the melody of truth, it's total peace, total love. And rather than get into a whole discussion with myself by Wednesday morning, I realized that I needed to make more of a commitment to stay away from, like, I never did watch Gaza. I never did watch Israel. I just was directed not to. And now it's the election, because my opinion is that it's like I know, and what I think is out there is important. And if I am really, truly wanting complete freedom out there doesn't matter. Who runs doesn't matter. So the discipline has become more apparent to me on how important my commitment needs to be. I didn't feel drawn to look at Israel or Gaza, and I got judged by my family because I am Jewish. Or Sharon is Jewish. I'm not Jewish. I think we'll go now talking about Sharon in third person, because it's time to just let her fall, because she's just the character that I used as a vehicle in this illusion. And I had a great love for the character to become holy. And the holiness can only be derived from who I am, right? So I'm in the same workbook as Lorri. And, the thing is interesting, Lorri, when you were sharing about a partner, you don't know. It could very well be that you will meet a partner, but it's depending on like how it comes up. It's like the way I met my husband was very different than me trying to meet anyone. He was my friend in the 12 steps. And I really did want a partner. And I had gone out on several dates with different spiritual teachers, even like I think it was Paul. I forget his last name, but anyway, I was dating people. I wanted just spiritual people, and Cliff is a wonderful man. He was so into the spiritual stuff, and now he's not. But I have absolutely been moved to go on, because it's a commitment that when this isn't real, you really don't want it. It's like, what are we doing? We're spinning our wheels wanting to be right. And the energy from the ego is very different than the peace of God. It's an energy that seems to be always asserting itself in some kind of arrogance. The I don't know mind is where I'm laying now. And I'm just saying, enough. I mean, why do I allow myself to think, well, look, Dove is more like committed than me? Well, that's just the ego. The commitment has to come from the I awareness, the I presence. No one is better than anyone in this process. We have equality at all times, because this is a mind, it's not a world. And when we realize that the split where we had this happen, it's just that, a split. But for this mind, I needed it to calm down. I needed to have readiness from spirit. And I've had that. But the commitment now is that right now in this world, it looks very divided. And we are all one. And it's just really hilarious the way ego has divided this whole dream. But there's no one right or wrong, because it's not really happening, only in the mind of the universal mind that is projecting something that doesn't even exist, other than a dream figures. And what does it exist of? It's consciousness dreaming of itself. But we are always safe in God. So the ego would have us seek for pain in the world, find it, and then blame everyone. Because the ego really, really doesn't know what we are. And when I'm in the ego mind, I think I'm Sharon, I think I'm in a world, and I think I know. Now, what happens if somebody comes into the election that maybe Sharon didn't prefer? Well, all I would do is rest in awareness, because I don't want this. And it's a commitment that, why would I want something that is like bad food? The ego isn't a good thing to have. The ego is really something that hates very much. And because, Lorri, when you were talking about despair, I only went through depressions for periods of time, but I appeared to be a very happy person. I don't know how that happened, but I did. But underneath that happiness, because, as the Course will say, this guilt is very deep into the mind of the ego. So this guilt that I had underneath, oh, I'm happy. Hi, how are you? Because I had this empathic personality, but the hateful talks are underneath the first thought, right? And this happened a lot as I was coming into, like, I think it was my 40s. It really, I shouldn't say that. It actually happened in my 30s. I was a rageaholic because of my PMS, right? But I was really screaming because I thought I had a reason because my mother screamed or my sister screamed or whatever. But really, it's just a scream and cry for God, and God is here right now. Love is here right now. So it's just important. Spirit does play every bit of role in this process. The ego really would never tell me. Yeah, the ego beat me up and said, you talk too much, you're too loud. And I am. I have a loud voice. That's why, I have an appointment to see a doctor for hearing because I don't even see that I'm loud. But I often joke and think that Jewish people are louder because that's how I was brought up. My parents were just so loud. But anyway, it's amazing when you start to commit to the process and there's a deepening because you really have to say that love is all there is. Love is what we are. Now, is it loving to say Hakeem is a better teacher than blah, blah, blah? Well, no, because I'm back into duality. Everyone that teaches on here or anywhere is a good teacher. And, I often would hear Spirit say, get the message, not the messenger. The messenger is being analyzed by the ego. The message is what you are. So when I hear a teacher, just get the message and be done with that. I think that Sharon, the character, had people pleasing attributes very much, and pretty much the one thing that I feel that really was the gift from this dream was that I always loved children, and that was just in me. And the idea that you love children is so beautiful because they're the most authentic. They tell you what they feel. They're not hiding, their hate. When they scream, they scream. But I teach older children, so they don't scream. They're more civilized. But just the same, there's so much joy in sharing yourself with a person, a child, but the child is so authentic. And that's where I am today. Over to you, Doug.
Wow, that was wonderful, both of you. Truly, yeah, that kind of reminds me of Ken Wapnick says, from a child to a woman to spirit. And both of you demonstrated that you've gone beyond that idea of I'm a woman, which is basically ego, since spirit doesn't know of gender. I want to welcome Cora from China. Thank you so much for joining us again, Cora. Yeah, I listened to you, Lorri, and you demonstrated for sure that instead of looking for the right looking guy at this festival or whatever it was, he said, well, what am I doing? And today's lesson 200, which is the final lesson in part 1 of the workbook, says there is no peace except the peace of God. And this is Ken Wapnick's commentary on it. He says, Jesus helps us to recognize that we're never really successful. I mean, he's telling you right up front. If you keep looking outside of you, that is not going to work for you. In the end, it's not going to work. You won't be successful in seeking for happiness and freedom from pain in the world. Yeah, we always find someone that seems to be less painful than the others, right? Whatever pleasure and peace we seem to attain is short-lived. For true happiness comes only, keyword is only, from remembering who we are as children of love. So children of love is basically spirit. And yeah, I'm not an ego, I'm not a body. And as much as we say that, the Course in Miracles uses it 23 times out of 23 of the 365 lessons. Is called, I am not a body, I am free, I am still as God created me, which means I am spirit. Now, even though he's already mentioned it 3 times already, the next 20 lessons from lesson 201 to 220, every one of the next 20 days, you're going to start the lesson with, I am not a body. So as long as you think you're a body, you can be looking outside of you because you see other bodies and you think the other bodies mean something. They're real, and I'm gonna look for some kind of answer, some kind of solution, some kind of thing to solve my problems outside of me. And of course, if you look outside of you, you're not only going to find things that are not real because there's nothing really outside of you, which he tells you, but you're going to find problems that you never even wanted or expected or asked for because the ego is in charge. The ego is doing your looking for you. Oh, yeah, there's the perfect person. Oh, yeah, that's the perfect this. No, no, no. There's no perfect outside of you. You are perfect. Looking outside is ego. Ego looks outside of you to find more of the same egos. So ego is finding egos. Yeah, yeah, Cora. Great to see you here for sure. So yeah, I spoke about Lorri now, and I want to share a little about Sharon. Sharon, you also, I think that as far as I know, you've come, like the longest way. I mean, of course, I've noticed that out of your ability to recognize it doesn't matter who wins an election. What difference does that make? I mean, how many times do you want to hear? And I'm going to go to my favorite paragraph in the Course in Miracles, lesson 135, paragraph 18. But I'm going to do a little bit more than the first sentence because you have to look at the whole thing, really, the whole paragraph. Because the first sentence is all about acceptance. What can you not accept? So let's look at it. What could you not accept? Well, okay. So acceptance to me is saying everything is perfect exactly the way it is. Now, if you don't think it's perfect the way it is, you're saying I'm denying this is good. I think there's something more, something better, and what is not good enough for me. That sounds exactly how the ego operates in this world. I want more. I want it my way. I don't like it the way it is. I mean, that's the entire ego act. That's the thought system. I want it thus. You know, it's like having uh, uh, what's that expression? A childhood. Uh, can't think of the exact word, but when children want it their way, they
Tantrum.
tantrum. Thank you. By the way, that's Ken Wapnick's word too. Tantrum. Yeah, the ego says, I want it my way. Screw you. But there is no such thing as my way and your way. There's no such thing as my way and your way. There's only isness. What is? what God creates is. God is. There's no my way, your. There's no my. There's no yours. There's is. No wonder we all like Amanda with her isness is your only business. Business is your, no, I want it my way. So if you can't accept isness, you say, well, I want something that favors me over others. Well, as long as you want that, guess what? In this world, which is upside down, crazy, loco, insane, you find that others have it their way and you're not getting your way. that's only because that's both sides of the same coin. You go for pleasure and you wind up with pain. In this world, there's two sides to everything. But in truth, there's no two sides of anything. There's only oneness. There's only isness. So let's look at that whole paragraph. What could you not accept if you knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and even to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good? Ego says, my good? What do you mean? Why is this for my good? Well, why don't you shut up for a while and just listen to the rest of the story? Oh, okay. Perhaps you have misunderstood his plan, for he would never offer pain to you. But your own defenses, excuse me, my defenses, yeah. You're saying, I want it my way. I want it thus. I don't care if you call it a tantrum. I'm right, and this thing is wrong. Well, as soon as you get into right and wrong, guess what? You're not going to be happy. I mean, he tells you very simply, do you want to be right? Or do you want to be happy? Choose one. You can't have both. So if you're going to be unhappy, what is being unhappy in this world? Well, I'm upset. I'm angry. I have pain. I'm hurt. Somebody hurt me. Oh, really? You think somebody outside of you hurt you, or you're doing this to yourself? Once you realize that you're doing this to yourself, you're already home free. But if you think that there's anything outside of you doing anything to you, you're a prisoner of the ego thought system that always wants to see guilt in other people. There's no such thing as guilt, except in the mind of the ego that says, oh, child of God, you didn't do the right thing. You left your father alone and thinking that you can do better, and now you're all alone. And oh, don't worry about it. I'll take good care of you all the way from the cradle to the grave. Yeah. And then even then I'll chase you into the grave as well. So let's finish the paragraph. Perhaps you misunderstood his plan, for he would never, keyword is never, offer pain to you. But your own defenses did not let you see his loving blessing shine in every step you ever took. While you made plans for death, huh? What do you mean made plans for death? I'm trying to avoid death. Yeah, that's exactly it. You think you're a body, don't you? As long as you think you're a body, you're making plans for you. You want to survive. Excuse me. You were created eternal. Eternal life doesn't need to survive. It's changeless. It doesn't change from year to year, from day to day, from minute to minute. You are the isness that Amanda talks about. The isness is your only business. So while you made plans for death, he led you gently to eternal life. Now, he led you gently to eternal life only means that as you're willing, only your little willingness is necessary to give up your belief system. What is a belief system? A lie. When you're willing to give up your lies and you say, all I want is the truth, you are the truth. The truth will set you free. You got to laugh at with all the BS that we believe to be true in this world. There's not one thing in this world that's true. It's a dream, and I'm the dreamer of the dream. You got to laugh. You simply got to laugh. Back over to you, Lorri. If anybody wants to share, please share. Miss Share, if you want to share, Cora, Len, anybody.
Yeah, you can put up your hands to share. So what you were just saying, Dove, all you want is the truth, and then you discover that you are, that God created one son, God and his son are the one truth. And that is something that as we let go of our ego characters' wants and desires and all of that, that just naturally emerges. Just like the introduction in the course says, you don't have to seek for love because love is what you are. You just remove the barriers to the awareness of love's presence. And that's all of our character stuff. Sharon, you were talking about yourself in the third person, and I do that too, because that's not me. All of the characters' wants and needs and opinions and political opinions and all that, they aren't me. So I just let them arise and I let them happen, but I don't believe them anymore. I just don't believe them. I just let them be. And with new teachers that come on the scene, Amanda or Hakeem, the ego likes to have something new. Well, now this is even better than the last thing. Oh, this teacher or this, now I'm finally getting it now. and I noticed that with anything, a new job, a new relationship, a new house, a new teacher, the ego thinks, well, now this is the key. This is what I've been missing. No, it's just one more thing in form. What we're missing is what this lesson 200 says. There is no peace except the peace of God. And when you recognize all those things out there that you think help you, because the word save, I didn't relate to that for a long time. I didn't think that they were going to save me, but now I see it. Now I see that I thought that I would be happier, which is another way of saying it would save me from despair if I had this or if I had that. But anyway, getting back to you are it. You are the wholeness. I am in need of nothing but the truth. And when my mind wanders to a temptation in the world, I bring it back and say, wait a minute. No, that's not going to make me happy. There is no peace except the peace of God. I am in need of nothing but the truth. And Dove, you noted that Sharon has come a long way, in which I've noticed too with the Trump stuff back in 2016. And it was fear. I remember back then, Sharon, and we've talked about this, that you were rabid. You were a rabid in your, he can't get in, he can't get in. Oh my God, we're going down. We didn't go down. We didn't go down. In fact, he kept us out of any new wars. And people are so worried about, we're going to lose our democracy if he's back in. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm not fond of him or anything, and I don't want him, but I'm not as scared as a lot of the people. So it's interesting to watch the politics, and it's fear on both sides. And the tantrums that we throw as 2-year-olds have just become grown-up tantrums. And we throw these tantrums because we want our way, and we think that our way is how we survive. I have a friend who wrote this wonderful book on the emotional freedom technique on the tapping, meridian tapping. And in there, he tells a story about these people. One of his clients was someone who worked at a big pharmacy company. And the people couldn't get together to make this drug because all of the parties, not all, but several of the parties were so into self-interest, and they wanted their research to work, and they wanted to develop the pill or whatever. And what he realized was they were all in survival mode. They thought if they were the best and they were the one to make the discovery, then they would be saved. Then they would be healed. Then everything would be right with the world. And so they couldn't come together as a team to do it for the oneness because they were individually in survival mode and they were in fear. And we see this on a massive level in our politics. Just this is how we survive. So Republicans are saying the Democrats are destroying democracy. The Democrats are saying Trump and the Republicans are destroying democracy. I know that the fear for the dream character in me is, why aren't you talking more about climate change? Bobby Kennedy is the one who's going to do the best for the environment and uniting people. But that's fear. That's fear in the character. I have no idea. And some people say he's going to get us into nuclear war. And then the other side says that one's going to get us into nuclear war. Well, guess what? If there's nuclear war, none of these bodies are going to be around. But again, there are infinite scenarios. We are not these bodies. And if we're still meant to operate in a body, we'll pop into a parallel world where there is no nuclear war. It doesn't matter, because it's waking up from the body, waking up from this world. Last November, when it was Rod's birthday, after he had transitioned, I said to you, where are you? And I have this posted on my lamp. He says, where am I? Everywhere. There is no world. If you can get this, you can be free of the belief in loss. Because I had been saying, I want to be done with the belief in loss. I am tired of feeling this way. I am tired of being in despair and worrying about my loved ones dying. And here Rod appeared to die. And I keep looking at that, and it's like, wow, there is no world. Well, that means there are no bodies. That means there are no stories. That means there's no history. There's no personal history of I was born here and did this and lived here, and none of that is real. And so it brings me such peace when I go, yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you. I don't need that anymore. Don't need it. I think, Lynn, I think you wrote something on the board. Oh, with Trump, because in the 4 years, he literally did nothing, literally did nothing. And Dov, you say dreams are a temper tantrum, saying, I want it thus. But actually, when you think about that, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because I don't hate Donald Trump like people do. I don't like him, but I don't hate him. And I I don't hate Biden. I like Biden. It feels so good to me to not hate anymore and to not be in the fear that I used to be in. So one of the things, though, I think one of the things from the debate that I agreed with Trump, with the Ukrainian stuff, with Putin, I'm not sure that Putin would have tried that if Trump was in office, because Trump can go right up against him. And even with like Kim Il-jung or in Korea, that even though he appeared to be buddy with them, I think behind the scenes it's like, don't try anything, dude. And now I don't know that. I don't have no idea. Maybe he would get us into nuclear war. I really don't know. But just thinking about it and not hating him, it's like, maybe he's the best person to keep us out of nuclear war. I don't know. I have no idea. So I wanted to comment on what you said, Dov, about guilt. And I was thinking about that this week, that I haven't been able to be on with Zulma's thing because I have an activity after this. But Regis comes on, and I miss Regis's teachings. I love him, but he comes on with Zulma, so we get a little bit of it. And Regis, back when, he would say, we all feel guilty. And a lot of times we can't relate to that, but he would say things like, I missed that stop sign. Guilty. I bought the wrong thing at the store. Guilty. I came to work late. Guilty. I yelled at my spouse. Guilty. I'm getting fat. Guilty. I ate the wrong thing. Guilty. I thought a bad thought about my coworker. Guilty. And so it was like he just brought it home, and that's what Regis does. He brings these things home to the practical level, and it's like we do feel guilty all the time, and we don't even notice it because the ego does not want us to look at that. It doesn't want us to look at our fear. There's a line in chapter 13 that says it's okay if you're in rage and angry. That's okay. The ego's not disturbed by that, but don't let it see your fear. And so we can have all this fear, and that's what the whole country is. It's fear, 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 fear. We're going down. We're going down. We're not going to survive. And I'm just so grateful. I mean, I get into the fear too, but I'm just so grateful I'm not where I used to be. And yeah, Dov, you just wrote, there's nothing to fear, lesson 48. And I go to bed at night sometimes saying that in my mind, the review of that. Yeah. Lynn, maybe nuclear war is the best thing for us. Viva la cucarachas. La cucaracha, la cucaracha. Maybe to start over again, because we've gotten ourselves into a real hell of a mess. And we are not these people, and we survive, and life is eternal. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sharon.
You know, it's funny because I feel that when I make the decision for God, it has to go all the way now, because the ego thought will pull you back. It just will. It pull you back unless there's a firm commitment. I'm done. And you know, who I like, who I don't like. Last time that was my own self-hatred, because fear is self-hatred. This whole world is built on an attack of love. So you have no way of finding real love here because it's an attack on love. And, you know, a lot of people seemingly look like they're really happy, but if they're in that ego mind, they can't be, because it's duality. And you're always going to have opposite thoughts in duality. You're going to have a lot of hate thoughts in duality. Now, what I saw in me was that I was around people that appeared hateful. And so, like, okay, if I talk about my mom, she was such a nice, loving person, but she had a side that she was proud of, that she would scream and yell and scare me. And it was a lot of that had to do with the story she had, which was she had polio when she was 22, completely paralyzed from the neck down. And, you know, I didn't have the empathy for her. Why? Because it was her job to be my mother. You see how the ego just is. It just feels like, and so it feels like victim all the time. So when she would scream, I would get scared, but really she was a perfect thought system for me to realize how fearful I am of God, right? And then I go to my ex-husband. Now that was an interesting thing. I think I've talked about this part of it, was like when I go back and in memory, I remember that I had a thought before I was getting married, and the thought came in, do you really want to marry him because he hates his mother? That was so interesting, because sure enough, that's pretty much what he did to me. He hated me. He made it a whole war about, you know, hiding money from me and his children. And, you know, what was so funny is I was so easygoing, unless I was getting my period. And, you know, when he decided to bring the options market into my house, which was absolutely crazy, here I am, like a person that loves children, doesn't even care so much about money. I didn't even understand the stock market. I couldn't understand it. And I was just interested in just the simplicity of love. But I did fall into the trap on my father. You know, when you have money, you make it. You know, his favorite song was My Way. And he didn't realize that there wasn't a way for him, but that's how he was. So when I had that thought, the next thought that came in is your parents will kill you if you cancel your wedding. Because they already spent the money. Because what happened with my older sister is she got divorced. She split from her husband 9 months after she was married for her first husband. She's still married to her second. But, you know, it was horrible. You would have thought that she was the worst person, because my parents talked about it nonstop. Like, they spent the money and look what she did. And that is the immaturity of the ego. And that's what they were. They were just immature parents. But, you know, when we talk about, you know, anything that I hate, like the ego is always going to look at certain things that I've had in my past. So, you know, if we look at, you know, Donald Trump, well, my ex-husband acted like him in the courtroom. He would act, I have no money. He would just lie all the time. And I was in this 9 years, which I think it was really necessary, and it really moved my consciousness, because it got to a place after 9 years, I was looking for the millions because that's what was taken. And when I found that I wasn't getting it, I surrendered. And that surrender brought me, unfortunately, you know, in the dream, it was my child and his addiction that brought me the most pain. because I could have cared less about money once he fell into addiction. I was just, who cares? Just let him live. And that is just part of the story. But if you look at who I like and who I don't like, it's always you're relating to somebody from the past, right? So if I like a certain president, it might be because I had a grandfather that was very gentle. So when I looked at Biden, I found gentleness. You see, that's how our minds work. But we really know nothing but the past. And if I completely want to connect to the world and have a volatile couple months, then I'll watch all this. But I have been guided not to, because I don't even talk about Israel and Palestine. And that goes on a lot in my family. I just sit and I listen. And a lot of times, when I was growing up, to be Jewish was the most important thing. My parents were very firm about, not my father, my mother, you marry Jewish, blah, blah, blah. My second husband's not Jewish. And my sons had partners that are not Jewish. And their father, my ex-husband, said, I can't believe all of you are with non-Jewish people. And I said nothing, but it's so funny because that's how conditioned we are. We are programmed to believe that we have to be separate, that we have to be, we have to be on opposite sides. If you're Jewish, you can't marry a Gentile. You can't marry, they would say goyim. This is the way I was brought up, goyim. And what's so funny is it's meaningless. And I remember having the thought is, why are they telling me who I can love? And that's how I felt too, because I did have a boyfriend that wasn't Jewish. And I married the Jewish guy, and I told my mom after everything that happened, that's what she wanted. And she said, oh, no, not anymore. Marry someone, she said to me, marry someone as gentle as you. Because I have a gentleness to me, but I also have an angry streak too, because after all, I was raised by that. So I have both. But I really want to be a light of love during this election, because I feel like it's gratitude to the process. Like, if you fall into this process, you know how blessed you are. It's like a blessing that you can't even put in words, because a lot of people say, well, he could do it or she could do it. That's not true. This is already over. And the divine it's just popping popcorn for certain beings. But it's like, if you get the ticket for freedom, then be the light of the world. Then be the light worker, right? And here it says in text chapter and manual for teachers, decide for God and everything is given you at no cost. There's nothing to get. Love is right here, right? Decide against him and you choose nothing at the expense of your awareness of everything. Atonement is for you. Your learning claims it and your learning gives it. The world contains it not, but learn this course and it is yours. There's not really much to learn in the course. It's an unlearning. It's a way, the way Jesus set this up is those lessons unwind the mind, but the commitment, now it's funny because the commitment really is organic. It's not like, because there's no Sharon, no Lorri, no Dove, there's just God. But the commitment comes when the readiness keeps saying, it's time for all the bullshit to go, because it's all bullshit. If you look at how crazy this world is, when these two grown men have a debate, they are screaming at each other and putting each other down like we did in elementary school. And I didn't do that in elementary school, but I'm sure I had the same thoughts. Because in the thought system of the ego, it's universal. We all have hate. It's total hate. So the right-mindedness is just to let all things be as they are. To come with open hands to your God means just know that you are completely blessed and there is nothing here that can hurt you. And the you they're talking about is the mind. Remember, the body is meaningless, and if something happens and I drop down into pain or something and I act out, that's still not me, because the ego is not me, right? I'm the seer, I'm the witness, I'm the one that's watching this movie. So like, to discard all of it is to firmly say, I am that I am, and I'm done. Over to you, Doug.
Okay, yeah, of course, I put up in the chat, religion divides. That, that's the only thing that religion does. It separates one from another. Of course, separation is the only sin that the Course recognizes as sin. So you got to laugh at what religion does. Of course, I found that one place in the Course, in the clarification of terms, I'll read it. A universal theology is impossible. Why is it impossible? Because there's no such thing as a universal theology. That's why. But a universal experience is not only possible, but it's necessary. So, today's lesson, there is no peace but the peace of God. That's the universal experience that this course has as a goal. Peace is the goal of the course, and peace is the purpose of the children of God who live in fear. So almost everything that happened, quote, in politics is well, I don't want that to happen. I'm afraid of that, and I mean, politics is nothing but something that talks to all of our fears. Literally, the Republicans talk to the fears and say, you don't want those people ever telling you what to do, but it's okay if I tell you what to do. And, so Democrats say the exact same thing. So it's always speaking to your fears. The funniest thing is a few things have happened since the Republican convention started on Monday evening. It made me remember something that was said to me by Bob O'Donnell. Some of you might remember the name Bob O'Donnell. He was one of the people in my original Course in Miracles group in Greenwich Village way back in 1980s, early 80s. He was a guy that once he became a moderator on his own, he invited me to the United Nations, where he was leading 50 countries at a table that's 100 feet long, and they all were reading the Course in Miracles, and he was the moderator. He was the teacher. He was a rear admiral in the U.S. Navy. He had achieved certain, as the world looks at it, certain success in the world. And he said something to me back then. And when I was watching the Republican convention, it came to my mind something from literally 1980. You talk about 44 years ago. He said, Dave, you're just like the couch in Jimmy Carter's Oval Office. I said, what? Yeah, it takes on the impression of the last person who was sitting there. I never really knew, how to take that. It seems like it's a slur, and you take on whatever is the last person that you listen to. Well, the funniest thing is I realized that that's true. First of all, I'm listening to the opening night, and everything sounded good to me. And believe it or not, when Donald Trump came out and I saw his face, I knew there was something very different in his face, very different than I had ever seen. There was a peace. There was something about him that had changed. And even on the second night, that was true. And then all of a sudden, I heard Katie Kerr. Now, those people who watch MSNBC know Katie Kerr. She's the MSNBC person that attended the convention in Milwaukee. So it was either last night or the night before. She said there's something about Donald Trump's face that is different that I've never seen before. So she saw the same thing. So I wasn't completely crazy. Two people see the same thing, something about that. she said something about him that's changed. And of course, the obvious thing is that he almost died from that bullet, that another millimeter or two closer, it would have been over. But I think he recognized that he's been given a second life. He's been given a second chance. And I'm the same as Sharon at this moment. And the same as you, Lorri. You're saying, what difference does it make? You got to laugh. What difference? Nothing outside really means anything. I mean, nothing outside, as Lorri says, none of it is real. As Ken Wapnick says a little above, I put it in the chat. Jesus is asking us to set aside our judgments and our grievances, which obviously we have all kinds of judgments on the other party, for these are the ego's raucous shrieks that prevent us from hearing the gentle voice reflecting God's plan for salvation, which is the atonement. Now, the atonement has already happened. We already have accepted it. We're just reviewing, as if we have to choose again, because the truth is there's only one of us here. And why is Jesus the head of the atonement? He already accepted the atonement. He says, you rose when I rose. We all resurrected together. We're just reviewing the past. It's literally like nothing has ever happened in this world. The world was over a long time ago. And even a statement like from Lynn, she says, so what if the nuclear, how do I know that that's not exactly perfect, or it shouldn't happen? The first time you use the word shouldn't happen, that's the ego. Everything happens perfectly, remember? Perfectly. You got to laugh. Which part of, if you're a body, of course, it's not perfect. So only bodies have something to fear. If you're a body, if you think you're a body, you do have something to fear. This whole course is, as the next 20 lessons will tell you, I am not a body. If I'm not a body, what am I? I'm spirit. Lesson 97. I'm spirit. 3 words. I'm the isness of Amanda. I'm the is. God is. You think only God is? No, we are all one and the same isness. You gotta laugh. Thank you all for sharing, for being here, for joining in. And with that, I see Zuma in the wings waiting with her big smile, turning this mic on over to you, Lynn Johnson.
All
Thank you,
right.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you,
you.
guys. Thank you, Lorri. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everyone who joined.
Thank you,
And-
everyone.
And yeah, it's so great. I mean, that's not what we're not here for dealing with the world. We're here for the miracle and to be the saviors of the world, salvation of the world, not the arguers over the minutia of how the world is built. So I'm happy to hear this kind of talk because it's the only answer is love. And if people are calling for love, that's the only answer. And whatever you call them, however you name them, however you look at them, that's all it is. Love, 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 or a call for love. So thanks, you guys.